Hello, beloveds. We are so thrilled to be back here with you today on the podcast. We took the new moon off this month for a summer break from being online, but now we're back with full Leo fire. So I want to invite you to just take a moment to visualize that we're gathering in our virtual sacred circle now from across the globe for an intimate fireside chat with my dear beloved soul sister, Maya Azucena, who I recently appeared in a music video with for Soul Art Day, along with a few of our other podcast guests, which you may remember or not. So I just want to invite you to close your eyes for a moment and just breathe in all of our beloveds circling around, nestling up next to the fire. And allow yourself to fully arrive here now to this sacred container from wherever you are tuning in to join us. Just taking some deep breaths. Letting anything out on the exhale that may not be serving in this moment. One more. Let's do one more of those deep breaths together. Thank you, beloveds. I'm so deeply honored and grateful to have Maya beaming into the Soul Sparkle Sanctuary with us.
Beaming, for sure.
She is a magnetically inspirational woman who's known for making music that uplifts the soul. Among several awards for her music and humanitarian outreach, Maya garnered a Grammy certificate for contributing her 4-octave range and soul stylings to a feature performance with Stephen Marley on Best Reggae Album of the Year, Mind Control. Critically acclaimed, she's an avid independent touring artist and songwriter who performs globally and collaborates extensively on stage and records with both national and international stars. She also launched a fearless campaign to empower women and girls in support of survivors of gender-based violence. So amazing, sister. You just sharing your bio just brings all of my cells alive. So welcome, sister.
So
Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me into the space, as you always do. It's just great. I'm happy to be here.
Yay. So each moon cycle in our Sister Hive Learning and Practice community, we're deepening into one of our 13 pillars of the sacred art of sparkling shamelessly. And this moon's community pillar is Ignite Your Fierce Feminine Flame. And the theme is Heart Warrior Activation. So really that's because at this pivotal time, we women are being called to stand in our full force and fiery feminine power to help heal not only our individual hearts, but also the collective global heart. And our wild, untamed nature and the wisdom of our bodies is calling us to step into our innate power and our untapped potential so we can truly root to rise and shine as Leo beckons us to this moon. And part of this task is really embracing all aspects of ourselves. It's acknowledging and making space for all of our emotions and our inner truths. It's revealing in this darkness of our shadow and also dancing unabashed in our divine feminine light. And I really believe that the overall health of our mind and our body and our soul really depends on how free we are to express our fierce feminine essence, which has been repressed for far too long. And I know you know this as well, sister. Since the birth of times, we have feared expressing our innate wildness and our ferocity and our truth and our passion. We've tamed ourselves and we've kept ourselves small, and we've not spoken up for fear of being burned once again or killed. But the wild woman archetype is truly having a resurgence, and she is here with us now, not willing to put up with this shit any longer. Like the primal volcano goddess Pele, erupting whether we're ready or not, filled with this fiery passion and righteous courage, seething with sacred rage, ready to make her mark on the world and play full out. And she's
Mm-hmm.
in you too, sister. And Maya wholly embodies this in her work as a performer and an artivist and an overall fucking badass, which is why I'm so thrilled that she is here with us today. So, sister, would you be willing to share a little bit about your own revolutionary journey that really led you to your sacred work in the world and shining so bright with your unique soul sparkle?
Yes, I would be willing to share. Thank you for that beautiful invitation. I mean, since I was a child, I mean, I was very expressive and always very curious about how to better understand who I am and how to uh, exist in this world that we're in. I was always an artist from a very young age. I never doubted that I would be an artist for my job, ever. I never had a day job I intended to keep, ever. I always knew it was all just lessons to give me some, base or education that I would apply to being an artist. But this revelation, just to the maybe there's more than one, birth or a revelation in one's life. There's the one where you may come to understand this career that you're going to follow, and you make this choice as a young person. This is what I'm going to be when I grow up. But there's another side of it where I understood that this was a calling as part of not just a career and a business, but as a spiritual journey. I will tell you a quick story. I'm a New Yorker, born and raised in Brooklyn, not far from where you are now. And I was in New York when the attacks of September 11th happened. And I had a meeting in the downtown Manhattan area. So I came out of the subway, stood on Broadway and Prince Street, and I looked up where the two towers, they were always there, always a part of our the landscape, the skyline, very important. It's like the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, the Twin Towers. These are all the Brooklyn Bridge. These are things that you see as New York skyline, and you can't imagine the skyline without it. And I came out of the train and I looked up where these two huge buildings are, and one of the buildings was gone, and it was just billowing gray black smoke where the tower was, and your eyes, hard to even understand what's happening. And as I'm looking up, I'm on Broadway downtown, I'm looking and I see the second tower fall before my eyes, just started to sink, and it tilt and sink very slowly, like when you see somebody chops down a tree and the way the tree kind of just slowly starts to sink and then it does the fall. And so both the towers were gone, and the street was full of people on foot walking against traffic down the middle of Broadway, covered in black soot, in their business clothes, crying, dirty, and everyone was freaking out. They had like their car doors open with the radio turned up loud, and we're just hearing this news like the apocalypse, like, okay, there's another plane, the plane is coming, and we don't know how many more, and all of this. And in this time in New York, New Yorkers, we're very tough. This is the first time where I saw that New York was shut down, really. And I mean, like, emotionally shut down. Everybody was very much in a depression. A lot of people lost people. And in that time of mourning, overwhelming, mind-blowing mourning, I felt so strongly like I want to do something. I need to do something. What can I do? What can I do? I'm only one person. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a fireman. Like, what can I do? And as I'm like, every ounce of my being is just weeping. It was like this surge of come over me of, I have to sing, I have to sing, I have to sing, I have to sing. And it was like an understanding that the thing that I had, that I could reach for, my weapon, was my voice. It was the only thing that I had that I knew it was my superpower. It was like, I couldn't, that was mine. That's what my story was. It's my superpower. But from that moment forward, it was like a very conscious thing that I am here to help people somehow. And my thing that I have is this voice and this music and these songs that I get to write, and to use them consciously in some kind of a way to contribute to healing, to contribute to awake, reminding people of their own power, actually. And through time, from that point forward, it became a very clear and conscious thing. Like, I write with this in mind. I perform as though someone's life depends on it. And that thing that you see when you see me on stage and you see what I do, it's coming from a deeper place. It's not just about making money and entertainment. While those things exist at the same time, for me, it's a spiritual thing. It's about how can I, not with this microphone and this presence, this opportunity to be in front of somebody, how can I reach out to them and help them to remember their own power, that they have the power to affect change in their own lives, that they are not forgotten, that their story matters, that there is something in them that they can reclaim if they have given it away, and that this intangible force of music can do that. And I've seen it. It was like, it went from being an experiment to having countless affirmations internationally about how music was able to reach into people. And people who never knew me before would come up to me and crying or confessing to me after the show, like and just even it's very interesting when a man opens up to me, because generally men are more shy about expressing their emotions, and then especially a stranger, they don't know you, for them to come up to me emotional and say, I just want you to know that your show made me remember like why I should work hard and why I should show up, and I was contemplating suicide, but your song helped me, like these types of things. So anyway, the beginning of the journey was then September 11th, but it's been a long, winding trail that's taken me all around the world with many adventures. And integrated into this, I had an unfortunately, abusive, sexually violent relationship that was 7 years long, and it had lots of psychotic bad things happening to me. And in the course of that painful relationship and trying to understand what, all right, there's so many things. Anyway, in the course of this, I also began to understand about, I became an advocate for domestic violence awareness, put it that way. So he and I, of course, broke up eventually, but also my music has been a source of conversation for women and girls internationally, and empowerment around this subject too.
So powerful, sister. Thank you for sharing that profound story, and just how the events of life and the world as they were unfolding helped to ignite that flame in you for your deep gifts. It was like this deep place of heartbreak is where your deepest gifts emerged from, and the gem in the wound. And so I find that deeply profound to know that. And I didn't know that about you yet. So I really appreciate hearing that story for multiple levels. And that was actually the weekend after is when I moved to New York after September 11th. So being here in that time as well, it really took me back to that emotion that was here. So I feel you and I hear you. And I think based on what you shared, saying that I perform as if someone's life depends on it,
I do.
that is a deeply profound statement that is so connected to the fact that this is a calling for you, and that that is what it is to live from that place of passion and fire, to know that it is about something so much greater than you. And, we often talk about how someone out there needs you, and how do you live your life so that they can find you, and you are doing that. And, you know, we also talk about this idea of the heart warrior, which that's the theme this month. And I'm curious for you what that means, because you are this example of delivering your deepest gifts to meet the world's deepest needs based on your own experience and your story. And the heart has an art in parentheses. So it is this like living our life as a masterpiece and bringing that forward. But what does it mean to you? Because you are a warrior. What is it to be a heart warrior?
First of all, it's very wonderful that we're talking about warrior, because it's been a very important theme for me in my life, and as part of how I view myself on this planet. I think a lot about being a warrior. I wrote a song called Warriors. When I talk about being a warrior, when I talk to young people, I'll say, you know, warrior is not just somebody who goes and fights and kills people. A warrior, it can be a spirit, the spirit of the warrior. And that is someone that is not afraid to face fearful things and situations, has the fire to speak out against injustice and to stand firm as a defender, someone who like love is a force as well, you know. Love is a force that destroys hate, you know, dares to love in the face of very great challenges. Um, so to be a warrior for me is like a way of life. I've always felt like a defender since I was a child. It's very much in my nature. But to feel empowered in that is important. And that's why I talk about superpower, finding your superpower, and what is that? To feel that, you know, yeah, you have heart and you're empathic, you know, you care about people, you want to do something, but you can still feel kind of weak and like, where do I begin? And one of the things that I believe is that, okay, if music is my superpower, like we each have our own superpower to discover. And it's something that you already have access to. You don't need to dig very deep for it or have to find it somewhere far away. Your gifts, your superpower is something that's at arm's reach and immediately next to you. And I challenge people that in trying to discover that, think about the things that you really love to do, things that you feel very, very passionate about doing, and explore them, because somewhere in there it's going to tell you what your superpower is. And then once I gave a workshop at Omega Institute, and I was talking about this concept, and one woman, she raised her hand, she says, it might sound silly and stupid. And I was like, no, nothing is silly and stupid. She says, well, I like to cook, and I think cooking is my superpower because it brings people together. And I said, well, then don't judge it. Like, if you know that it's a superpower, see, it's like if you think about X-Men, like the movies, you know, when they're young and they're kids and they have this power, they're afraid of it, and they're afraid to use it because they think they're gonna mess up or it's gonna hurt other people. But when you understand that it is a power, if you consciously apply it, if you look at it as such, and you use it in the right way, it becomes a force. And it goes from being something that controls you or something that's loosely out there to something that is a force that you can consciously apply and utilize. And so the reason this is important is this particular example about cooking. I met a woman at a conference, and she had lost a young child to cancer. There are not a lot of resources for children with cancer. As she discovered, and she felt that she needed to do something, and she's basically a soccer mom and didn't know where to begin, and she started baking because it's what she knows how to do and is the only thing she could reach for in this pain and this thing. And she's baking and baking and baking cookies and selling them, but she started an organization called Cookies for Cancer and raised thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for research for child cancer. And she's become this leader in this particular area using something that was so easy for her to reach. But the key was to being able to consciously apply it to help, to do something with. And that, you know, for me doing the music, that was my, what can I do? I'm only one person. There's a tsunami of bad news coming, and greed and selfishness and things that are out of our control. But what I can control is what I do when I have that fucking microphone. And I'm in front of people, and what I can do with that, you know what I'm saying? And for each of us, if we can just look at the things that you love to do and sort them out, and not be afraid to see, how could I use this to help somebody?
Yeah.
You know? And that's part of being a warrior as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, I love that. I love those stories. Thank you so much for sharing. They, you know, really touched my heart. I felt myself getting a little teary, and that is so much what it is, you know, to be that heart warrior, to be somebody, an individual who's really moving with courage and intensity towards living fully alive and deeply engaged from this wild, full, and open heart that is really from that essential essence and our essential gifts and our medicine, superpower, as you call it, you know, that only we have, that only we can bring. And if we don't bring it, it will be lost forever. You know, like our masterpiece that we are bringing, and our stroke to the great cosmic masterpiece, that it will never be again unless we deliver that. So,
and I like to say this, don't lose your train of thought, but I like to say this: there's only one you that is or will ever be.
Yeah.
So your story is important.
Yeah.
You know, your place here in this time is important. And yeah, maybe someone else knows how to bake cookies, but that person is not living in your city, in your space, I read an article, there's a book actually called Not on My Watch, Not on Our Watch. John Prendergast and Don Cheadle wrote a book about the genocide in the Sudan. It's very inspiring, actually. I thought the book was going to be impossibly sad, but it was very inspiring for anyone who wants to be an activist. And they talked about the fearlessness of children, because children don't know yet that you can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. They don't know that. And they talked about this little kid who saw homelessness in his town, and he decided to create a lemonade stand for homeless people and raise something like $100,000 selling lemonade to help homeless people, because he didn't know you can't do that. You can't help people with lemonade. Yes, you can. Yeah. You can. And a little child doesn't know that you can't. And that's why they were able to make that difference. But if we understand how we give away our power, we have more power than we realize.
Yeah.
And we have given it away, and you have to reclaim your power. Reclaiming your power is knowing that you used your power to give it away, and that you can ignite your power to return it to yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. As protectors of cosmic order and justice, and really showing up to deliver our gifts where they are needed most. And I love that story too. And all these like 13 and 14-year-old entrepreneurs that are creating these incredible businesses and really showing up and living unapologetically as who we are, and delivering our deepest medicine in whatever way that is for us. And it will be unique for each of us. So thank you to that. And the fact that we have been so repressed, especially as women, and anyone known as sort of outsider or, you know, really shamed for our magic often. And so our gifts now that we are here with are slightly unconventional in some cases, and they're sometimes more difficult to really bring online because of years of shame and all of those things. And that's why we gather and practice, so that we can move through the shame, we can move through the layers of repression and really shed those chains that are no longer serving us, so that we can step back into our power and sovereignty and live from that fiery, fierce feminine place within. So
can I reflect on what you said?
Yeah.
I really like this idea about like let's be weird. And what I mean by that is, you know, on the most superficial level, like almost all super successful people, let's admit it, they're weird. But it's an amazing thing what that means is that the thing that is different about you, a lot of times we try to repress it and hide it.
Yeah.
The thing that is different about you is part of your power. And if you can look at that and nurture that, then you will start to understand how it gives you a place that no one else can have on this planet. You know, your thing, that thing that is quote unquote weird about you, that different thing, if you nurture that, if you, instead of repress it, hide it, shove it down, put, you know, cover up on it, if you, instead of that, if you celebrate it, if you nurture it, it will teach you where you can be on this planet as a force. I really believe that, you know, and that's the start of becoming fearless in your life, you know, one of the ways to start.
Yes, absolutely. And I totally agree with that, which is one of the reasons we incorporate a lot of shadow work as well, because often those deep gifts and the weirdness get shoved into the shadow. And so really helping to bring those back out, to heal through those so that we can sparkle shamelessly again and be our full light and show up like that. You know, and I know that we affectionately refer to each other as sisters of the sun, you know, because we carry that blazing bright light and that fiery heat in the world in how we show up and really share our essential essence. So in that, you know, I'd love to know what sacred practices you use to stay rooted in your passionate and infinitely sunny, fierce feminine flame and really keep that at a sustainable burn, especially when you're on tour, performing every night, center stage, sometimes for weeks at a time in multiple countries. How for you do you keep that flame lit and that passion juicy in your journey and in the intensity of your sacred work sometimes?
I mean, I'll share, and it's interesting because I don't usually share the details. So describing it, I won't struggle to describe it, but what I mean is that I haven't described it often. So I don't know how it fits into, I'll just tell you. So I'll start from the beginning, then I'll skip to current. When I was a teenager, I was raised in a family of just, you know, my father's a journalist, my mother's a counselor. We were not raised in any kind of a religious household at all. They're very agnostic and kind of distrusting of any institution or organized religion. Actually, I still carry that to this day. I'm not comfortable with organized religion or establishments and institutions in general, in any category. But anyway, but when I was a sophomore in high school, I started a spiritual journey. I became a Christian. And I say this, that I use the term spiritual Christian because more than joining the social clique of church, I started the journey of having a daily relationship with God and talking to God and reading and in my case serving Jesus Christ as my Lord. And through time, one of the first things when I was a teenager, I hated myself. I actually hated myself and I was very unhappy. And one of the first things God told me was, you're not allowed to hate. You're not allowed to hate my creation, and you're my creation. So you have to love yourself. And I was like, oh man, I have to love myself. But I started to be kinder to myself. I realized that I was more mean to myself than any other person on the planet. If you could hear the things you would say, I could said to myself, I was quite mean to myself and beat myself up. And what started to happen was I was respecting my own thoughts and ideas, and I started to write a lot. I kept journals for my whole life, writing and expressing and being able to care for the thoughts that exist within me, and the world that exists in my mind, and the visions and dreams that I have, starting to see them as worthy and precious and to be nurtured. And through time, great peace that always evaded me became something that was directly in front of me. Now, after many years of this thing about having a spiritual walk and a relationship with God and a relationship with Jesus was I did a lot of reading and prayer and things like this. Now, in the last couple of years, I became really interested in silent meditation. I don't know, it's not a practice that somebody specifically taught me. So I think that the type of meditation I do is possibly closer to shamanic type of meditation, or cross between Buddhist and shamanic. I don't know. But I like to be very, very still. And the way I think of it is that it's kind of like when you go outside to get a suntan, you don't do anything. You just sit and you honor the fact that the sun is just going to absorb into you and tan you. But I think of it like the sitting still is like we are sitting still in the presence of a profound love. You are profoundly loved more than you can imagine. And if you can sit still and understand that you are profoundly loved and completely understood, you're not judged, you're perfectly safe, and you sit there and you let the love in. Because I realize that we have a lot of walls up around us that block the love from getting in. We're very frustrated with life. We're frustrated with the people around us. We're frustrated with our job. But we also block, it's like blocking the sun from getting in. You're blocking the light and love that completely available to you. You're blocking it from getting in. And that's sitting there and being still and being available to be loved, to know that it's possible to be profoundly loved, greater than your greatest dreams, and let that in. And that stillness, when I am sitting in meditation, there's different things. Like one, like I think like I am a tree, and then I'll just think of the smell and the texture of the bark of the tree, and then my roots going in, feeling the soil beneath me and the stableness of the soil gripping, holding me up, and the sun warming the top of my head, and envisioning that, and just your whole body just starts to resonate with this, like you just are loved and you are okay. And what you do in the stillness of the meditation starts to like almost like iron out the wrinkles and the dust that got trapped inside of these crevices slides down and off of you because of your stillness. And so my opinion is that energetically, things, just like we take a shower every day, you could be in your house doing nothing, and you take a shower and you still have dirt in the bottom of the shower, and you're like, what did I do? I didn't even do anything today. You don't even realize that just being in the environment, you get stuff stuck on you. But energy-wise, that happens too. You're, especially someone from New York, or you're actively engaging with a lot of people, it's like energy kind of like sticks to you. And you don't even know that it's not your own. And there's this shower that you should take. Why not? You take a shower for your hair, you take a shower, you wash your face every day. Why? If you sit still and let that love in, and just, it's like a cleansing that like washes off the dust of all this energy that gets kind of like sticking on you. And then you could see the difference between what is yours and what had nothing to do with you. Sometimes you could be carrying along someone else's bad mood and issues. You've been holding it tight in the pit of your stomach for like a week, and you realize, oh man, I'm actually in a bad mood because of a conversation I had 4 days ago about someone else's problem. You realize I was like, I've been dragging that with me for the last 4 days, you know? So as an artist, where I am like, basically in almost like a healer position, I'm giving everything of myself to bring inspiration and be a source of inspiration for people. But there's a lot of energy coming in too. Yeah. And people don't intentionally, you know, like I'm in Turkey at the moment, That's why I'm drinking Turkish tea. They have a thing they talk about, the evil eye, which is like if somebody's looking at you with a bad intention or maybe jealousy, and they don't realize it, may or may not realize it, but they're putting kind of like a negative energy towards you. Not all energy is negative towards you. It could be positive, that someone is just sucking, almost like they want your light, they want your positivity, they, oh my god, like you're, you know, but that also is something that you need to cleanse, you know. And so I find like this quiet type of meditation has been really incredible, and I feel my whole body resonating. And like I started to understand more about chakras and the different parts of the body. It's like your body, everything that's alive has flow, but as far as I can understand, most things flow circularly. And so if you're blocked, then it's going to create illness, right? If you have a clot in your blood, the blood cannot flow and you can basically die, right? Well, energetically, these types of things happen as well. You can have a blockage, and that sitting still and being present, you start to feel like your chakras basically rotating and spinning instead of being stuck. Something could be like stuck, and when it's stuck, it creates issues, you know. So these are parts of the practices. So when I have these big shows, like big tours and everything, I've been really particular about making sure to meditate and be still and be able to become fresh and cleansed, so that I can see the difference between what's mine to deal with and what actually was something I needed to put in the trash and like let it go down the drain, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate that so much. And the practice that you do with letting the love in that way. We actually have a guided meditation in the Hive called the Love Flood, which is very much that, like really allowing that in. And it is a super powerful practice to really just allow yourself to be bathed in that profound love. So I love that that's something that you do on a regular basis. And also just the, energetic sovereignty is something that I like to talk about as well, which is exactly what you're tapping into around that, like making sure that you're not carrying around anyone else's stuff and that you are energetically sovereign and in yourself.
Yes.
As moving through the world and stepping up to do your work. And the other thing that you mentioned that I wanted to touch back on was about how you used to hate yourself, and that was a big part of your journey. And I know that recently you came out with a new single called Prettiest that highlights part of that story. And I love this song and how you're bringing it forward as part of your artivism. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the song in the context of really helping our listeners to connect in more with their own capacities to take a stand for what matters most and to step up and take action in ways that are rooted in our own personal stories, so that we can help bring healing to the world through our own experience.
Yes, I was pleased to share that. And, there's just one thing I also want to say in this context. A lot of times people want to make a difference in the world, or they want to change even their own life, and they feel like they have to go and basically get a degree or go through this training. And not to say that those things are not valuable, but there's so much you can do right now. Yeah. If we do all that we are capable of doing in the now, you will be shocked at how much you can achieve. The problem is that we don't even try because we think we're not good enough, or we don't have enough resources, and we just don't even do.
Yeah.
So if you just start with doing everything within your power in the now, you will start to see massive growth and change. I like to describe my song Prettiest as the song I wrote to my 13-year-old self. The lyrics, I say, there once was a time when I didn't love myself. And when I looked in the mirror, I saw everybody else. Everything about me wasn't where it ought to be, because I still hadn't learned to trust the power in me. I used to stand in front of my mirror in the hallway and look. And by the way, I developed late. So I was like a sophomore in high school. And this is like, think about the most vain times of your life and you're a sophomore in high school. I was completely flat chested. I hadn't started my period yet. I mean, like my younger sister had her period already, like my friends, and I'm like, something is wrong with me. I was totally flat, no shape whatsoever, no hips, like bony ankles. I just was so, I mean, this is like physical, looking at my physical and like not being happy, but also I thought something was wrong with me because I was different. And I knew that I was different because of, I'm super heady, super analytical to the point where it's painful. But at that age, I was just like, why can't I just be like everybody else? You know, felt this burden of being different. I was more comfortable talking to grownups, for example, than kids my own age. And kids my own age didn't know I was struggling. So they thought I was fine, you know, because I could act like I was fine. I was good at acting, you know. But I was really troubled by the fact that I wasn't like them. And I knew I wasn't like everybody else. And even just coming into this world, you know, I'm half Black, half white, in America, where you're being always asked to choose, what are you? You know, I grew up in a Black neighborhood, primarily spending most of my time with my brown-skinned mom, who I worship, you know, and I was fair skinned, and it caused a lot of attention, and it made me feel so uncomfortable, and I felt like I wasn't Black enough, and I didn't fit in. It was all these things, and trying to process them at the same time. And, you know, when I said that, you know, God told me you're not allowed to hate yourself. You're not allowed to hate my creation, so you can't hate yourself. It was the start of me considering that my thoughts and things I valued and cared about were worthy to look at. And it started to melt down all of this need to fit in. Why is it so important to fit in? Why is that such an important goal? Fitting in, what is this?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I started to think I'm not Black or white, I'm Maya. That's what I am, I'm both. And I'm not afraid of either of those things about me. You know, I used to feel like I had to hide or be afraid of to tell people things like, look, if the people around you don't like you because of who you are, then they're not really your people.
Then fuck them. Get it?
It's serious.
But don't have time for that.
They're not your real people, your tribe. And I talk about having like a virtual tribe. We find each other around the world. We identify each other. I'll meet somebody who barely speaks English and we'll totally be like, same spirit. Like, I'm like, oh, you're so like my virtual tribe. And like, we find each other, you know. We get so stuck in trying to be in a category and fitting in, and what is the value in this? I'm not sure what this value is, to fit in and be like everybody else, you know. But learning, you know, that your inner power is what makes you beautiful and even sexy. What is sexy? Sexy is not, do you have full lips? To me, sexy is how you hold yourself. Sexy is that you're even in touch with your sexuality. I mean, that's sexy to me, you know, like, so to be that, for me to discover what makes me sexy, you know, is knowing that, you know, I don't want to become invisible and look just like everybody else and become lost in this crowd. I want to be something unique. Inner power, inner strength is where your true beauty resonates from. And it's sustainable, by the way. Your inner strength is sustainable and can grow infinitely, right?
Yes.
If you're only judging yourself as beautiful on your physical attributes on the outside, those things are going to keep changing through time, shifting through time. I'm horrified that young people get plastic surgery. Before their bodies even finish growing, they're getting plastic surgery. It makes me sad, you know? And it has to do with the they can afford to hate themselves. That's what I thought about Michael Jackson. He had the money to be able to hate himself enough to cut off his full features of his face. You know, people without money, we have to learn to deal with it. Some people have the money to like, you know, to to pay to hate themselves. I love you. We can find a way to love ourselves where we are. Then you'll understand that there's a transformation and a glow and a beauty that will start to like burst out of you just by owning who you are, where you are.
Yes.
And
remembering, sorry, go ahead.
And remembering what?
Remembering how much you matter and that your gifts matter and that you're needed now. That tapping back into what we were talking about earlier and being that heart warrior and really taking a stand for what matters and really allowing yourself to bring that forward here now at this most potent time in human history. Sparkling shamelessly, that's what it's about. It's an inside job, not an outside job.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. If you work from the inside out and talk about it being sustainable, it's something that can continue to, and this is why I love the notion of being a tree. By the way, the reason that I relate to trees is because also God once told me, because I was very frustrated about working so hard as an artist and seeing other people surpass me in terms of fame, let's say, or money, and I'm struggling so hard, etc. But I'm always reminded, like, in my case, yes, it's a career, but it's also a spiritual journey. And any great spiritual person of spirit doesn't just get to a destination. You have a journey, and that journey is very important for the development of your spiritual self and your ability to help others. Mm. So one day God told me, a big tree takes longer to grow. Mm. And that statement has stayed with me for so many years. Whenever I get frustrated and I was like, no, I don't want to be a weed. I don't want to be a weed that grows and pops the flower out and then dies a week later. I would like to have a decades-long career where the things that I create last after I'm gone and help people. Like, that's so one of the reasons I relate to being a tree. But a tree also kind of grows infinitely. As long as it's alive, it continues to grow. Yeah. And it's an incredible attribute of a tree, but it's something to think about ourselves. If we go after this notion of developing who you are from as an inner being, your ability to grow, it never ends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're mm-hmm.
provides that fruit as well, and that nourishment continually over time and cycles through and continues to offer that beauty and that love, really birthing our love into action in that way through the nourishment of the tree. And it's actually one of the images we use too in Sister Hive, this root to rise and shine idea that we must be rooted deeply into the earth to be able to rise into our full power and shine with our full light. So I really honor that image. And, if we can just transport that image and closing the podcast today of all of us as these brilliant, beautiful trees that are growing on our journey at our own pace, wherever that is, without judgment, but knowing that we're leaning into each other as a sisterhood with our roots and that we are drawing energy and inspiration from each other as we grow. And that it's us coming together and connecting underground and above ground in that constellation of light that allows us to thrive and continue to soar. So I just love that as an image, and thank you for that inspiration, and thank you for all the beautiful work you do in the world and how you bring and birth your love in every moment when you sing and when you perform and when you give everything, when you literally show up as if somebody's life is on the line. So I'd honor you, sister, for your journey. And,
I honor you and everyone else that's tuning in. Thank you so much for embracing me. It means a lot.
Yeah, it's so beautiful to have you and join us on the podcast today. And can't wait for more soon.
Thank you.
So, beloved, we're going to dive into the masterclass, and that went a little longer than usual. So we'll probably do a few less questions for the masterclass. There were so many juicy things. I didn't even get all the questions in. So one of the questions I was going to ask you was around, how do you believe we as women can step more into our power and our passion and embodied leadership potential at this time when we are still facing such a crisis of gender-based violence and an overall epidemic of violence in America, with the mass shootings and everything that's happening?
All right, I'm going to tell you a shift that happened for me. I grew up as a tomboy. why this is relevant is because I've always felt comfortable around boys and being a little, sporty and boyish. And I never, I just felt comfortable with, at a young age, with a lot of guy friends. And I almost didn't trust women friends for many years. Just speaking as a young person, because I saw a lot of things that I thought were like catty, jealous behavior, or just the kind of things that qualities that I didn't want to be. And it took me time to see and witness some things. One of them was that I did this conference called the Women in Power Conference, and also that was Omega Institute. That was Omega, not Kripalu. And 500 women from around the world doing incredible work in their communities internationally came together in one place, and they are all absolutely fierce, fiery, amazing manifestors in their worlds. And we just came together and put all these flames into this huge bonfire of like unity. A lot of stories that I heard, what I saw in that space physically, but also the stories that they shared, because I was hearing stories from around the world of what happens when women work together. When we choose to unite, we become a fabric that cannot be cut through. We cannot be denied. You can't do any society without women. If we choose to come together and work together, change absolutely happens.
Yes.
It is inevitable and impossible to deny. So what we as women need to do is to continue to see the value in coming together, supporting each other, and becoming a unified force. There is no society without women. But what happens is when we have been weakened, now I've been in many countries, so, America, we have our big, huge banquet of issues, but we generally have freedom of speech. I've been in countries where I have even been told, let's say Tanzania, or I've been told stories, firsthand stories, how in I believe it's in Swaziland, in Africa, they didn't have a women's rights movement until a few years ago, for the first time in all history. And women were not allowed to speak in public at all. So the women started to sing in public. And they created these massive choirs where they were talking about politics and coming together. And it was crazy. I'm getting chills talking about it, because it was their creative way of coming together and creating a force. I'll tell you another story. This incredible woman that I'm so in love with, and I can't think of her full name now. You're going to have to forgive me, but she's an activist in Korea, from South Korea. She created a women's choir that united women from North Korea and South Korea.
Wow.
You're not even allowed to go into North Korea. The whole country is a prison camp, okay? The women were allowed to come together to create a choir around the border between North and South Korea. And it created this conversation and sharing of information that is affecting massive change and opening the gates there. It's stunning, mind-blowing, but it all starts in original source of what happens when we choose to come together and work as a collective force. As individuals, we in our own world, in our own household, all right, we're creators. We're creators both of human life, but also artistically. We're just so many things innately. as such a force in your own home. And then if you expand your home to your block, you expand your block to your neighborhood, you know, you are an individual force. But when you take that and you ask the woman next door to you and the woman next door to her and the woman next door to them, what happens when we come together and just make some decisions? They can't do it without us. Nobody. So I think this is a key to massive international change. It's women, first of all, recognizing that you're valuable in the first place, because we don't come together if we don't think that we're valuable.
Right.
We don't come together if we don't think that our voice matters. We don't come together if we don't think that our story counts. We don't come together because we don't think we're important. So there has to be a starting place of knowing that you're valuable in the first place. Knowing that, and this is what I'm talking about, reclaiming your power. Your power is something that sometimes our power is taken from us, but many times we've just simply given it away for free. But when you give something away, you can also take it back. If you understand that you are powerful, that you're making choices, and you can still make choices about your life, and take that power back, understand that you're valuable and that you count, then you start to work with those around you and create, you know, I don't know. That's what I think.
Beautiful. I love that so much. I mean, that's very much so a center point of all the work that I do as well, bringing us together into sacred circle to be able to create change, to do ritual, to do ceremony, to heal, to play, to grow, transform, to collaborate, and to remember who we are, to remember our power, to remember our capacity, and to channel our life force for the greater good in the next 7 generations, because we don't have time to be fucking around anymore, in a sense, you know? And so I just love that is really the observation that you have come to in these profound experiences and your journey and sharing that. So thank you. Yes, I 100% agree. And I have a sense, just being on this interview with you today, that we're going to collaborate on something soon. I see that.
I'd be so excited. We gotta put our sun powers together.
That's right.
Sun powers activate.
Woo!
So serious.
So I have one other question that I want to ask, because we're talking about boundaries a lot, and this idea with the fierce feminine of really being connected to your sacred no and your embodied yes. And part of that is in the outside world, seeing an injustice, being able to say, no, not on my watch, but also in our own lives, you know, putting those fierce boundaries in place so that we can live our dreams fully and freely. And since you do this so powerfully and have had to make, I know, a lot of compromises and boundaries and things, you know, how do you journey with boundaries, and how do those serve you when you need to put those fierce boundaries in place?
I try to think about things as healthy. We understand health if we're talking about food, for example. It's so easy to say, oh, it's healthy, you know, to eat salad. It's unhealthy to eat, you know, candy bars all day. Like, we can see it, but when it comes to your mental health or your spiritual well-being, there's health there as well. Sometimes we're, you know, as let's say, if you're tend to be an altruistic person, giving is a part of your personality. Saying no is a difficult thing to do, but we have to remember that it's not, to say no sometimes is not about being selfish, but saying no sometimes is about creating a healthy space for yourself. For example, it's not selfish to eat lunch, right? Like, we can understand if you talk about food, but so no, I need my full hour to eat lunch because my body, it will give out on me if I don't eat. You know, that's not selfish, it's healthy. And so when it comes to spiritual boundaries as well, it's like knowing that saying no sometimes, or mental boundaries as well, like dealing with people. Saying no sometimes is a very valuable thing in order for you to achieve your goals. You know, Now, I guess if we're talking about activism and how do we stand our ground when it's an injustice and a saying no in that sense, I believe in righteous anger. You know, I've been through very painful things, you know, and sometimes I've encountered people who, I don't want to say pseudo spiritual, but they're the type of people who are like, you know, you're just being negative, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I'm observant. I'm motherfucking observant. We should be outraged sometimes. You know what? If somebody's raping underage children, I should be fucking outraged. In fact, everybody should be outraged and stop this fucking, oh, you're being negative. That's bullshit. We need to be able to observe things and call it for what it is and be able to be angry enough to make a change. Sometimes that conviction comes straight out of anger.
Yeah.
And I don't mean the kind of anger where I can't control my temper anger. I'm talking about there is a righteous anger. There's some things that just shouldn't be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Children being torn away from their parents, treated like animals and put in jails, sleeping on the floor is disgusting. It's unacceptable. We should be angry.
Yeah.
You know, and being able to look at that anger and not use it in a destructive way, but to use that righteous anger in the way that creates.
Yes.
And also in a way that you can use your righteous anger with it's almost like righteous anger comes out of love.
Yeah.
If I love somebody and I see somebody hurting that person, righteous anger it's love is my source of why I feel the need to protect that person.
Yeah.
And why I need to stand up for them. It comes out of love.
Yeah.
But that love also is giving me the courage to face the things that maybe other people would fear. And I say, not today. This is not your day. I'm standing up to you.
Yeah.
That fierceness, that comes out of a source, an infinite source of love. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, man. Like, I just some of my thoughts on no's.
Well, that's the true heart warrior activation right there. You know, it is that place of like, how do we tap into our greatest heartbreaks? How do we tap into the righteous anger? How do we tap into that sacred rage in order to channel that towards creation, towards healing, towards transformation, towards personal and planetary resurrection? That is now to really stand up and say, not on my fucking watch is this going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck that shit. No more.
Exactly.
And that is the fierce feminine when she comes in, that mother love, that cub that is refusing to stand by in the face of grave injustice.
Absolutely.
That is that heart warrior activation and saying, I love enough to do something about this. I have enough love to give to show up instead of turn away, instead of shut down, instead of close my heart out of the deep, deep pain from what is happening, and instead let it crack open more. So that love can pour out into the world in a way that can truly help lift us all up.
Absolutely. And and there's so many multiple ways of looking at this. There's the world of injustice. There's also injustices that occur in our personal lives. And you actually start with self-love, loving yourself enough to say, no, you cannot hit me. You cannot talk to me this way. I can't live like this. I don't accept this as my way of living.
Yeah.
I don't accept this. And that starts from the love, that same exact love, same exact righteous anger, but it's a love reflected inwards, knowing that you're valuable enough to fight for. You're valuable enough to fight for yourself.
Mm.
And once you start doing that, you find it also that your foundation becomes more stable and your strength increases and your ability to do for others becomes way more easy. Because you've strengthened your own foundation, So, there's a lot of abuse of power. There's a lot of repression, oppression, bold, gloating greed, and, you know, but we are the majority.
Yeah.
The average person suffers the most, but the average person is the majority. We suffer from not knowing that we have power.
Yeah. And that is
And
why we gather, so that we
exactly.
can remember.
Exactly. High five.
And sending some of that fiery sun energy that we have to our sisters, that fierce feminine flame, may it be lit up by this conversation and the juice and the gifts and the love that is here, and just remind you of what is possible and ignite that passion and that aliveness that we journeyed with last moon, and just keep that flame lit at that sustainable burn, so that we can truly burn away and transmute all that is no longer serving our world. Because it is the women that are going to do that, who are going to be able to love enough, just like Marianne Williamson out there fighting for the presidency, you know, and her platform is based on love, and everything she is sharing is about love. And, you know, how can we truly walk as love and burn that flame and show up in the fullness of who we are, sparkling shamelessly for the good of all, as we continue to journey. Do you have any final words or sentiments you'd like to share with our Hive sisters, beloved?
I'm just thankful to have had your ear for this long. You know, just don't forget that, you know, right where you are is where you begin. We always feel like, oh, I need to get someplace before I can start. You're already on your journey. And the power that resides within you may not be as strong as it will be or as you want it to be. It doesn't mean you don't have power. And if you start, it can be activated simply by starting to do something.
Yeah.
And I challenge people to remember to start to look at those things that you love, in terms of trying to discover where is your superpower, where could your superpower even be. Make sure that what you love is somewhere on your schedule.
Yes, yes. And what nourishes you, beloveds. And we're here to journey with you and to remind you of all of those things, and to help hold you in this when it gets difficult, and when we might forget, when we might turn away based on the stress of life or whatever it might be. That knowing that we are walking this path together, that we are learning and practicing together, and that together we truly can lift up the world. So
yeah, you're not alone. Just remember that. You're not alone. Thank
We're
you.
here, and we love you. And I love you, sister. Thank you so much. We're going to post links to Maya's website below, so you can check out more of her work. And we'll also post the link to her new music video. And in between, we'll be buzzing over in the sacred sanctuary in the meantime. And it's been beautiful to be with you today. And happy new moon, beloved. And we will see you soon. Bye.
Love you, sister.